The planet Nera was a world of blue skies, silver rivers, and great forests that stretched farther than sight. Its towers were carved from living crystal, shining under twin suns. The people of Nera lived in peace, guided by their queen Leora, who was both wise and gentle. She ruled not with fear, but with compassion. Yet even with her strength and her crown, she carried a wound in her heart that no power could heal. Her daughter Mira, the young princess of Nera, had been missing for many years. Mira had vanished when she was still a child. During a conflict near the border, raiders from the outer zones attacked a convoy where she had been traveling. The Queen's guards fought bravely, but the attackers disappeared into the shadows of space, leaving behind only broken ships and smoke. No body was found. Some whispered Mira had perished, but the Queen never believed it. She felt deep inside that her daughter still lived. The halls of the palace were filled with advisors, soldiers, and visitors, yet none dared to mention the loss too often. Whenever Mira's name was spoken, the Queen would look to the horizon, her eyes heavy with both hope and sorrow. Many times she had sent scouts and search teams across the galaxy. Many times they had returned empty-handed. Still she waited. Still she believed. Far away among the human forces who worked as peacekeepers across the stars, there was a soldier named Daniel. He was not a man of noble birth nor a leader of armies. He was a quiet soldier, one who listened more than he spoke. Among his fellow humans, he had gained respect for his steady heart. He never abandoned his duties and never turned away from those who needed help. He had seen wars, ruins, and suffering, yet he still believed that small acts of courage could change the path of history. One day, while stationed near a trade hub, Daniel overheard whispers in the crowded marketplace. Merchants and travelers spoke in low voices about a child of Nera held captive by raiders. They said the girl wore a necklace with the crest of the Queen, a small crystal circle with silver wings. Many dismissed it as rumor. Others said the raiders kept the girl as a symbol of their power. Daniel listened, his heart stirring. Could it be true? Could the missing princess still be alive after all these years? Most soldiers would have walked away. It was not his mission nor his order. The raiders were dangerous, their strongholds hidden in wastelands and guarded with traps. To go after them meant risking his own life with no promise of success. Yet Daniel could not ignore the thought of a mother waiting and a daughter alone in the dark. That night, as stars burned quietly above the trade hub, he made his choice. He would go. Daniel began by speaking to traders who had traveled through the desert worlds. He asked them carefully about the raiders, never pushing too hard. Some gave only silence, fearing the raiders' wrath. Others offered bits of information. One old trader with hands marked by years of labor finally shared what he knew. There is a place in the cliffs, the old man said, his voice rough but steady. A fortress dug into stone, hidden by storms. Few return from its shadow. They keep treasures there and captives too. If the girl you speak of lives, she may be within those walls. Daniel thanked the man, gave him food and water in return, and set out the next day. His path was not easy. The desert winds cut like blades. Sandstorms rose without warning, blotting out the suns. For days he walked alone, carrying only what he needed. His boots sank into shifting ground, his throat burned with thirst, yet he did not turn back. Each night he looked at the necklace in the picture he carried, the crest of the Queen, and reminded himself why he walked this path. As Daniel moved deeper into the wastelands, signs of the raiders appeared. Broken machines lay half buried in sand. Smoke trails curled in the sky. At night he saw strange fires on the horizon, where raiders feasted and laughed without fear. He kept his distance, watching from the shadows, learning their patterns. His patience became his weapon. Meanwhile, inside the hidden stronghold, the lost princess grew in silence. Mira had survived the years of captivity with courage, though she was still young. The raiders kept her apart, telling her lies about her people. Yet she never forgot her mother's face. In the quiet hours, she would hold her necklace close and whisper to herself, "One day I will go home." Back in the desert, Daniel discovered the entrance to the raider base. It was carved into a cliff, invisible from a distance. The gates were heavy, guarded by patrols. Traps lay scattered around the outer paths, ready to catch the unwary. Daniel studied it for days, watching the changes of guards, the shifts of shadows, and the secret tunnels used by raiders at night. He began to map in his mind a way inside. The task ahead was dangerous. A single mistake could mean capture or death. Yet Daniel did not feel fear in the same way others might. He felt a steady calm like water moving through stone. He told himself that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to go forward in spite of it. As he rested in the shelter of a broken ridge, he thought of Queen Leora, waiting still in her palace. He thought of Mira, who had lived too long in darkness. He knew that if he could bring her back, it would not only heal a family but also show that even across the wide gulf of stars, humans and the people of Nira could stand together as more than allies. They could be friends. They could be family. Daniel prepared himself for the days ahead. He sharpened his blade, checked his gear, and studied the paths once more. Tomorrow he would move closer. Tomorrow he would begin the hardest part of his journey. He looked at the stars shining above the desert sky and let out a breath. The missing princess was not just a story. She was real, and Daniel had decided that he would not rest until she was free. The desert stretched endlessly, its sands glowing red under the heat of the twin suns. Daniel walked across this vast wasteland with steady steps, carrying his small pack and his silent determination. He knew the stronghold of the raiders was near. For days he had followed broken trails, burned wreckage, and old tracks left by their machines. His mind was sharp, his senses alert, because he understood that even a single careless step could bring death. The stronghold of the raiders was not built like the shining towers of Nira or the steel stations of humanity. It was carved deep into the face of a black cliff, half hidden by storms of sand that swept across the land. From a distance it looked like a natural wall of stone. Only when the sun struck at the right angle did the openings appear, narrow cracks that led to tunnels within. This was the place the traitor had spoken of. This was the place where Mira was kept. Daniel crouched on a ridge and watched. Below, raider patrols moved like shadows. Some rode small machines that kicked up dust, while others walked on foot with rifles across their backs. They laughed and shouted, but they never dropped their guard. The entrance to the fortress was wide enough for a transport, guarded by heavy gates made of reinforced metal. A smaller tunnel ran along the side, guarded too, but less watched. Daniel studied their movements. He was patient, for patience was his strongest weapon. He stayed hidden for 2 days, observing their routine. He saw the shifts of guards, the way they rotated every few hours. He noticed how at night some raiders left through hidden paths to hunt or trade. These small details mattered because Daniel knew he could not fight an army. If he wanted to succeed, he needed to be silent, invisible, a shadow that passed through their walls without sound. At night, when the desert grew cold and the stars filled the sky, Daniel rested in the shelter of rocks. He ate little, only enough to keep his strength. His thoughts often drifted to Mira, the lost princess he had never met but had sworn to save. He wondered what she looked like after all these years. He wondered if she still carried hope in her heart. That hope gave him strength. Inside the fortress, Mira lived in a small chamber carved from stone. The room was bare with only a thin blanket and a dim light. She had grown older in captivity, but her spirit was not broken. Every day she remembered her mother's face and her people's songs. She kept her necklace hidden under her clothes, the silver wings of her family crest pressing close to her heart. It was her reminder that she was more than a captive. She was a daughter of Nira. The raiders often mocked her, saying no one would come. They told her the queen had forgotten, that the galaxy had moved on. But Mira did not believe them. In the silence of night, she whispered to herself, "One day I will go home." On the third night of his watch, Daniel saw a chance. A storm rolled across the desert, thick with sand and lightning. The winds howled, blinding the eyes of guards and hiding the stars above. The raiders cursed the storm, pulling their cloaks tight and staying close to firelight. Daniel smiled faintly. The storm was his ally. He moved with the wind, his body low, his steps careful. The sand lashed against his face, but he pressed forward, reaching the base of the cliff. The smaller tunnel was before him, guarded by 2 raiders who could barely see through the storm. Daniel waited until lightning cracked above, then slipped forward like a shadow. With swift precision, he disabled the guards without a sound. He dragged them aside, out of sight, and stepped into the dark tunnel. The air inside was damp and cool, carrying the smell of metal and oil. The walls were rough stone, reinforced with steel beams. Torches flickered in some places, while wires buzzed with faint energy. Daniel kept to the edges, moving silently, his hand ready on his blade. He passed storage rooms filled with stolen goods, weapons piled high, and cages where smaller captives had once been held. Most were empty now, but he could feel the echo of suffering within them. Deeper inside, the tunnels opened into wider halls. He could hear voices echoing, raiders laughing, shouting, and arguing. He pressed himself into shadows, waiting until the path was clear, then continued forward. Every step took him closer to Mira. Mira, at that very moment, sat quietly in her chamber listening. The storm outside shook the walls, and the raiders were restless. She heard footsteps pass by her door, the same as many nights before. Yet tonight felt different. Something stirred in her heart as if the wind carried a new promise. She touched her necklace and whispered, "Please, let it be true." Daniel turned a corner and saw a large chamber guarded by 2 men. Through the bars of an iron gate, he glimpsed a figure sitting in silence. A girl with long, dark hair, her shoulders thin but her eyes still burning with quiet strength. His breath caught. After all these years, after all the stories and whispers, here she was. The missing princess. He stayed in the shadows, studying the guards. They were armed but careless, talking loudly and laughing at their own jokes. Daniel waited, letting their voices cover his movements. With swift precision, he struck, knocking them out before they could raise alarm. He pulled the keys from one of their belts and stepped toward the gate. Mira looked up as the lock clicked. At first, her eyes were wide with fear, thinking another raider had come. But when she saw Daniel, a human soldier with calm eyes and steady hands, she froze. She had never seen him before. She did not know if she could trust him. "Princess Mira," Daniel said in a quiet voice, "I have come to take you home." Her breath trembled. For a moment she thought it was a dream. She shook her head, afraid to believe. "Who are you?" she whispered. "A friend," Daniel answered. "Your mother waits for you. You are not forgotten." At those words, Mira felt her heart stir. For years she had prayed for this moment, and now it stood before her. Tears filled her eyes, but she held them back. Slowly, she rose to her feet and stepped forward. Daniel reached out a hand, and after a long pause, she placed hers in his. Together they slipped into the shadows, leaving the empty cell behind. The path ahead would not be easy. The raiders would soon notice the missing guards, the open gate, and the vanished prisoner. Danger surrounded them at every turn. Yet for the first time in years, Mira felt the taste of freedom, and Daniel felt the weight of his promise. The storm outside still raged, masking their steps as they moved deeper through the tunnels. The journey was only beginning, but a spark of hope now burned bright. In the heart of the raider stronghold, the first step of escape had been taken, and both Daniel and Mira knew there was no turning back. The storm outside still raged, lightning flashing across the desert sky. Inside the stone tunnels, Daniel and Mira moved quietly, their steps light against the cold floor. The stronghold was awake with noise, raiders shouting and moving about, but the storm covered many sounds. Daniel knew their time was short. The guards he had silenced would soon be discovered, and once the raiders realized Mira was gone, the entire fortress would be hunting them. Mira stayed close behind Daniel, her eyes wide with both fear and hope. She had never seen a human before, and yet this one carried himself with calm strength. He did not look at her as a captive, but as someone who mattered. His voice was low, steady, never rushing. That steadiness gave her courage. They reached a narrow corridor lit by flickering torches. Daniel pressed against the wall and peeked ahead. 2 raiders were blocking the path, talking loudly about the storm. Their weapons rested against their shoulders, and they seemed distracted. Daniel motioned for Mira to stay hidden. He slipped forward, swift and silent, striking before the raiders even realized they were not alone. Both collapsed quietly, and Daniel pulled their bodies aside into the shadows. Mira watched with awe, realizing this soldier had risked everything to come here. As they continued, the stronghold seemed endless. Tunnels twisted in every direction, with heavy doors leading to storage rooms and armories. Daniel used his memory of the map he had built in his mind during his days of watching from the ridge. He knew there was a side tunnel that led outside, used by raiders during hunts. If they could reach it, they might escape the fortress before alarm spread too far. Yet luck did not hold forever. As they turned a corner, a raider patrol entered from the other side. 4 men with rifles spotted them at once. Shouts filled the air, and the sound of boots echoed down the tunnel. Daniel pulled Mira behind cover, drawing his weapon. The raiders opened fire, bolts striking sparks from the stone walls. Daniel returned fire, swift and precise, dropping 2 before the others could react. He moved with practiced skill, never wasting a shot. The last 2 raiders fell, but the sound of the fight carried through the tunnels. Mira's heart raced, but Daniel stayed calm. "We must move faster," he said, guiding her forward. She nodded, trusting him completely now. They hurried through the maze, the echoes of pursuit growing louder. Sirens blared suddenly, a harsh sound that cut through the storm. The fortress was awake. Lights flared across the tunnels, and more raiders began to move. Daniel quickened his pace, guiding Mira through hidden turns and narrow passages. She followed without question, though fear tightened her chest. At one point, they entered a large chamber filled with crates and stolen goods. Raiders rushed in from the other side, blocking the exit. Daniel scanned the room quickly. Above them was a broken metal walkway leading to another tunnel. Without hesitation, he pulled Mira toward a stack of crates. "Climb," he ordered. Mira hesitated only a second before obeying. She scrambled up the crates, her hands trembling but her will strong. Daniel followed, covering her with precise shots that kept the raiders pinned down. Blasts struck the crates, sending splinters flying, but he never faltered. Together they reached the walkway and disappeared into the upper tunnel before the raiders could climb after them. The chase continued. Alarms echoed everywhere now, the entire fortress in chaos. Daniel led Mira through winding tunnels, sometimes crawling through vents, sometimes hiding in shadows until patrols passed. At one point, they crouched in silence as a group of raiders stormed by only a few steps away. Mira held her breath, her heart beating wildly. Daniel placed a finger to his lips, signaling calm, and she steadied herself. They pressed on until finally faint light appeared ahead. The tunnel opened onto the cliffs overlooking the desert. The storm still raged, sand whipping through the air, lightning flashing in the distance. Freedom lay beyond these walls, but their escape was not yet won. A group of raiders stood guard at the opening, their cloaks whipping in the storm. They had been stationed there to keep watch, and now they blocked the only way out. Daniel studied them quickly. There were too many to fight head-on, and Mira was too important to risk. He crouched close to her. "Stay behind me. Do not run until I tell you," he whispered. She nodded, her eyes filled with both fear and trust. Using the storm as cover, Daniel crept forward along the wall. Lightning flashed, masking his movements. He struck swiftly, taking down one guard before the others noticed. The fight erupted instantly. Shouts rose above the storm, weapons fired, sparks lighting the air. Daniel moved with precision, every motion sharp and controlled. He shielded Mira with his body, driving back any raider who came too close. Mira crouched low, clutching her necklace, watching with wide eyes. For years she had lived in fear, but now she saw true courage before her. This human fought not for riches or glory, but for her freedom. The fight was fierce, but Daniel did not falter. One by one, the raiders fell until the last dropped into the sand. Silence returned, broken only by the howl of the storm. Daniel breathed hard, his chest rising and falling, but his eyes stayed focused. He turned to Mira and gave a small nod. "We are clear. Go." Together they ran into the storm, leaving the fortress behind. The wind cut against their skin and the sand burned their eyes, but Daniel kept her steady. They moved across the desert until the black shape of his small craft appeared through the haze. It was hidden beneath a ridge, covered in sand to escape notice. Relief washed over Mira at the sight of it. Daniel pulled open the hatch and guided her inside. The engines hummed to life, their glow piercing the storm. As the craft lifted, Mira looked back through the small window. The fortress of the raiders shrank into the distance, swallowed by the storm. For the first time in years, the chains of captivity fell away. Inside the safety of the craft, Mira sank into a seat, her hands trembling. Tears filled her eyes and she let them fall freely. "I thought I would never leave that place," she whispered. Daniel sat across from her, his voice calm and steady. "You are free now. We will take you home." Mira looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Why did you come for me?" "You are not one of my people." Daniel met her gaze. "Because no child should be lost and no mother should be left without hope. That is reason enough." Her tears flowed harder at his words, but they were no longer only tears of sorrow. For the first time in years, she felt the warmth of hope, the light of freedom, and the promise of home. As the craft cut through the storm and rose into the sky, Daniel set the course for Nira. The hardest part of the journey still lay ahead, but they had taken the most important step. The rescue was complete, and the bond between human courage and alien hope had been sealed. The fortress of shadows was behind them now, and the path to reunion stretched ahead through the stars. The small craft lifted from the desert with a low hum, rising through the storm until the dark sky opened into the calm of space. Stars stretched across the void like rivers of light, endless and pure. Daniel set the controls with steady hands, guiding the ship away from the cursed land of the raiders. Beside him, Mira sat quietly, staring at the stars with wide eyes. For years she had seen nothing but stone walls and shadows, and now the galaxy lay before her bright and endless. Her heart pounded with wonder and fear. She touched her necklace, the silver crest of her family, and whispered to herself, "Home." Daniel glanced at her, his face calm though his mind stayed alert. He knew their journey was far from safe. The raiders would soon discover their escape. They had fast ships and they would not let go of their prize easily. But Daniel was ready. He had come this far and he would not fail now. The ship glided smoothly through space. Inside the small cabin, silence grew heavy. Mira sat with her hands folded, her eyes never leaving the stars. Daniel finally spoke, his voice quiet. "You should rest. You have been through much." Mira shook her head. "I cannot sleep. It feels strange to be free. For so long I thought I would never leave those walls." Daniel nodded slowly. "Freedom can feel like a dream at first. But it is real. You are free now and we will see your mother soon." Her eyes filled with tears, though she tried to hold them back. "Do you think she still waits for me?" "Yes," Daniel said without hesitation. "She never gave up. She never stopped believing you were alive. She has waited all these years and now you are returning." Mira closed her eyes, letting his words sink into her heart. For years the raiders had told her lies, that her mother had forgotten her, that her people no longer cared. But Daniel's voice carried no falsehood. It carried only truth. She allowed herself for the first time in years to believe fully that her mother still waited. As hours passed, Mira began to ask questions. She wanted to know about the human worlds, about the people Daniel came from. He told her of Earth, a planet of blue seas and green forests. He spoke of mountains that touched the sky, of rivers that sang as they flowed, of cities filled with voices and lights. Mira listened with wonder. "Your world sounds beautiful," she said softly. "It is," Daniel replied, "but so is Nira. I have seen your world's forest from afar, shining under the twin suns. Both our worlds have beauty, and both have pain. Yet in both, hope is found." Mira looked at him curiously. "Why did you come for me? You risked everything, though I am not of your people." Daniel's eyes stayed on the stars, but his voice was firm. "Because no child should remain lost. No mother should wait in sorrow. It does not matter if we are of different worlds. What matters is that it was the right thing to do." His words touched Mira deeply. For years she had been told that people only acted for power or wealth. But here was proof of something greater. She felt warmth in her heart, a trust she had never known with anyone outside her family. Their quiet conversation was broken when alarms sounded on the ship. Daniel checked the screens, his expression tightening. "Raider ships," he said. Small blips appeared on the radar, growing closer. The raiders had found them. Mira's breath caught in fear. "Will they take me back?" Daniel shook his head firmly. "No, not while I still draw breath." He moved quickly, adjusting the ship's course. The raider vessels appeared on the edge of space, sleek and fast, their engines burning red. They closed in with deadly speed. Daniel's hands flew across the controls. The ship shuddered as he pushed the engines to full power. Stars streaked across the windows as they raced forward. Bolts of energy lit the darkness. Fired from the raider ships. Daniel swerved hard, dodging the blasts. Mira gripped the seat tightly, her heart pounding. She had dreamed of freedom for so long, and now it was slipping away. But Daniel's focus never wavered. He moved with precision, guiding the craft through the storm of fire. "Hold on," he told her, his voice steady even in danger. The chase roared across space. Daniel weaved through asteroid fields, using the rocks as cover. The raiders followed, their weapons blazing, but the human soldier's skill turned the small ship into a ghost, slipping through dangers that would have destroyed a less steady pilot. Mira watched with wide eyes, her fear slowly giving way to awe. Daniel fought not only with weapons but with courage and sharp mind. Each move carried purpose, each choice made with care. She realized then why he had been able to find her when so many others had failed. Finally, after what felt like endless hours, Daniel spotted a nebula ahead. Clouds of gas and dust swirled in glowing colors, hiding the paths within. "We will lose them there," he said. The ship plunged into the nebula, its light wrapping around them. The raiders followed, but the thick clouds scattered their sensors. Daniel guided the craft carefully, weaving through hidden currents until the signals of the raider ships began to fade. After long, tense minutes, the radar cleared. They were alone. Mira let out a trembling breath, tears of relief running down her cheeks. "We are safe?" "For now," Daniel said with a small nod. "They will search, but they will not find us here. Soon we will be close to Nira." The words brought new strength to her heart. Home was no longer a distant dream. It was real, waiting just beyond the stars. They rested in the calm of the nebula. Mira finally allowed herself to sleep, her head resting lightly against the seat. Daniel watched over her, keeping the ship steady, his mind alert. Though tired, he did not rest. His duty was clear, and he would see it through. Hours later, Mira woke to the soft glow of the twin suns of Nira shining in the distance. Her breath caught in wonder. She pressed her hands to the glass, staring at the world she had dreamed of for so long. The forests, the rivers, the mountains, all waiting to welcome her home. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "Mother." Daniel guided the ship toward the capital. Messages flashed across the screens as Nira's defense forces hailed them, their voices filled with shock and disbelief when they learned who was aboard. Word spread quickly, racing faster than light across the planet. The missing princess had been found. The queen's daughter was returning. As the ship entered the atmosphere, Mira's heart pounded. She thought of her mother, of the years lost, of the moment soon to come. She felt both joy and fear, wondering how it would be to stand before her again. Daniel saw her trembling and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You are not alone. Walk forward with courage. Your mother has waited for this moment, and nothing will take it away now." Mira nodded, drawing strength from his words. The ship descended toward the grand landing bay of the Crystal Palace. Thousands had gathered, their voices rising in waves of awe and joy. The queen herself stood at the front, her eyes fixed on the sky, her hands trembling as she waited. The journey home was ending, and the greatest reunion was about to begin. The Crystal Palace of Nira gleamed under the light of the twin suns, its towers reflecting every color of the sky. The landing bay was filled with citizens, guards, and advisors, all staring in disbelief at the small ship descending from the clouds. Whispers spread through the crowd. Some could not believe what they saw. Some dared not speak, and yet, at the center of it all, one figure stood with eyes fixed on the sky, waiting. Queen Leora's hands trembled as she watched the craft approach. Her heart pounded in her chest. For years she had waited for this moment, clinging to hope when all reason said it might never come. Her advisors urged caution. They told her to prepare for the worst, to expect that her daughter might never return. But Leora's heart refused to listen to their warnings. Deep inside, she felt it. Mira was alive. Mira was coming home. The ship touched the landing platform with a gentle hum, dust swirling around its base. Daniel opened the hatch and helped Mira step out. She stumbled slightly on the platform, still weak from her long journey, yet determination burned in her eyes. She had survived captivity, escaped the raiders, and crossed the galaxy to return home. Every step she took brought her closer to the arms she had dreamed of for years. As she rose, the crowd parted instinctively. They had never seen the princess before, not in her current form, older and stronger than memory allowed. Yet her presence carried the same aura of hope and nobility. Citizens whispered to each other, eyes wide with wonder. "It is her." "It must be her," they said. "The princess has returned." Queen Leora stepped forward from the center of the crowd, her robes flowing with the movement of her arms. Her breath caught as she saw Mira alive and standing before her. Tears filled her eyes, and she took slow, careful steps toward her daughter, afraid that this moment might vanish if she moved too quickly. Mira froze as she saw her mother approaching. For years she had imagined this reunion, but reality was more powerful than any dream. She wanted to run into her mother's arms, but doubt still lingered for a moment. Was this real? Could it be that after all this time she had truly returned? Daniel stood behind her, silently watching, his hand resting lightly on hers as if to remind her she was safe. He had guided her through the dangers of space and the raiders' fortress. Now, all that remained was this final step. Queen Leora reached Mira, her hands trembling as she lifted them to her daughter's face. Mira's eyes filled with tears as she recognized the warmth and love that had never left her mother's eyes. "Mom," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "I'm back. He rescued me." The words fell softly, yet they carried the weight of years of sorrow and hope. Leora's knees weakened and she embraced Mira tightly, holding her as if she would never let go. Tears streamed down both of their faces, blending sorrow, joy, and relief into one. Around them, the crowd fell silent, witnessing a reunion so powerful that even the wind seemed to pause. Daniel stepped back, giving them the moment they needed. He did not move away out of pride or for recognition, but because this was their moment. Yet he could not help but notice the glances of the citizens, the silent acknowledgement of what had just been accomplished. In that moment, humans and Nira's people were united by a simple truth. Courage and kindness could cross the boundaries of worlds. The Queen's voice trembled as she spoke, pulling Mira closer. "You are home. You have returned to me. I never stopped hoping." Mira pressed her face against her mother's shoulder. "I never forgot you," she said. "I tried to hold on, but I was so afraid. Then he came, and now I am here." She looked toward Daniel, gratitude shining in her eyes. "I owe him everything." Daniel gave a small nod. "You had courage too. I only guided the path. You made it through the hardest parts with your own strength." The Queen straightened slightly, her gaze falling on Daniel. "You have given us the greatest gift a human could give," she said softly, her voice full of respect. "You have returned my daughter." Daniel shook his head humbly. "I only did what was right. She needed someone and I could help. That is enough for me." The crowd began to cheer, their voices echoing through the crystal towers. Some wept with joy. Others stood in awe. The story of the lost princess returning, saved by the courage of a human soldier, would travel across Nira for generations. It was a story of hope, courage, and the strength of the human heart. Mira and Leora stepped forward together, walking slowly through the crowd. Citizens reached out to touch the princess, offering smiles and congratulations. Mira waved gently, her own tears drying as she felt the warmth of her people. She finally understood that she was not alone, that her world still loved her, and that home was more than a place. It was the people who waited for her. Inside the palace, preparations were made for a celebration. The Queen insisted that Daniel be honored not with titles or riches, but with respect. He had proven the power of one person's courage and kindness. To the people of Nira, he became a symbol, a human who stood for what was right, who crossed galaxies to save life, who reminded everyone that compassion could bridge any distance. Mira and her mother spent long hours talking. Mira told Leora about the raiders, about her captivity, and about the hope she had held on to through the years. The Queen listened carefully, tears flowing at every word, and promised her daughter that she would never face such danger alone again. She spoke of rebuilding, of strength, and of peace. And Mira understood that her role as a princess was not only to survive, but to lead with courage and love. Evening came, and the twin suns set over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. Mira and Leora walked together through the gardens of the palace, their hands clasped. The air smelled of blooming flowers, the soft wind carrying whispers of a future brighter than any past suffering. Daniel watched from a distance, content in knowing that his part in this story was complete. The Queen finally turned to him. "You have given more than any human could be expected to give," she said, her voice steady now. "You have restored hope to my family and my people. Nira owes you a debt that words cannot capture." Daniel smiled faintly. "I do not need thanks. Seeing her safe, seeing you reunited, that is enough. That is all I need." Mira stepped closer to Daniel, her eyes shining with gratitude. "I will never forget you," she said softly. "You gave me a second chance at life. You gave me back my mother." Daniel looked at her and nodded. "Take care of your world. Protect it. You are strong and you will do well. That is the best thanks I could hope for." That night, as the stars of Nira lit the sky, the palace celebrated. Music filled the halls, laughter echoed in the streets, and stories of courage and hope were shared. Citizens spoke of the human who had risked everything for one lost girl. Children listened with wide eyes, inspired by the bravery they had witnessed. And throughout it all, Mira and Leora remained close, their bond stronger than any time apart could break. The galaxy itself seemed quieter that night, as if acknowledging the triumph of hope and courage over fear and despair. Mira, now safe in her mother's arms, understood the meaning of trust and bravery. Daniel, though far from home, knew that his actions had shown what humanity could achieve. Not through power, but through courage, compassion, and the willingness to do what is right. The story of the rescue spread quickly across Nera and neighboring systems. Humans and the people of Nera celebrated the unity of worlds, recognizing that bonds formed by kindness and bravery could overcome even the darkest of times. Mira's return became a symbol not just of hope, but of the enduring power of love and courage that no distance or danger could erase. And in the quiet of the palace, after all celebrations had ended, Mira held her mother's hand tightly. "I will never leave you again," she said. Leora smiled, tears still glistening in her eyes. "And I will never leave you. Together we will face the future stronger than ever." Outside, the stars stretched endlessly across the sky, silent witnesses to the reunion of a mother and daughter, and to the courage of one human soldier who had made a difference that would be remembered for generations.